So is Bal Harbour shops open?
Good morning. Thank you. We're not quite open yet. We're waiting for word from our county mayor. As you may know, the rest of the state opened starting on Monday, but Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach counties were, I think, wisely excluded by Governor Ron DeSantis because the COVID-19 rates in Southeast Florida are a little bit different than the rest of the state.
How are you thinking about what reopening is going to look and feel like for consumers?
You know, I think consumers are really anxious to get back to a sense of some kind of normalcy and familiarity. Our concern first and foremost is, of course, the safety of our customers, of our employees, and really of the broader community. So that's certainly first. But we've been I guess inspired by some of the news that we're getting. The Department of Homeland Security issued some guidance based upon a study that they'd performed around mid-April, but they released it during that coronavirus task force meeting where the focus quickly became on how much Clorox people should be injecting in themselves. And the data that was lost was that the study found that sunlight, humidity, and temperature have an impact on this virus. Mm-hmm. So outdoor parks, outdoor places, and outdoor shopping centers have a way to fight back that we certainly intend to put to good use.
You know, Matthew, retail was a tough business. Even before this pandemic broke out, traffic was a problem as people go online and just totally change their shopping habits. How much harder do you think it's going to be post-pandemic when they've all been nervous and in their homes and even more ordering online?
Well, you know, I think there's a lot of ingenuity in the American people. There's certainly a lot of innovation from the small businesses and some of the international businesses that are retailers and restaurants at Bal Harbour Shops. As I just mentioned, because we have a fully unenclosed fresh air outdoor center, one of the things that we're doing is we're working with our restaurant tenants who I think wisely and understandably get that they need to limit their indoor seating capacities. But because we have a fairly large outdoor area that's typically used for moving people around, we have the ability to grow those outdoor seating areas. So we hope that we might get to a point where any spaces that need to be given up in an indoor space to create the necessary social distance can be recreated in an outdoor space. So for the public who's coming out of being trapped inside their homes and apartments and spaces for all these months, they'll be able to enjoy a meal at their favorite restaurant, perhaps in a garden-like setting, which maybe won't be so bad.
Yeah, Matthew, you're pointing to the cabin fever that the country obviously has. I wonder, though, if you think some of the activity will be driven by people who are trying to order things online, looking at really long delivery times, canceled orders, and even at the margin, I mean, it's not saying a lot, but it might make people just appreciate the experience of going somewhere, finding what you need, and taking it home right away. I wonder if you think that might be a bit of a dynamic.
I think that is a dynamic. As I mentioned, many of our restaurants, and I think many restaurants across the country, didn't really have a takeout model. It wasn't something that they did, and they were kind of forced to be creative and to be innovative. And now many of them, if not most of them, are doing that, and we envision they'll continue to do that even after they reopen their dining rooms. So there's a source of revenue that probably wasn't budgeted at the beginning of the year. Similarly, for the customers who have gotten used to browsing online, perhaps in a way that they didn't used to, we'll have the ability for those customers to continue to do that. But rather than having to wait, days or weeks to get that merchandise, they can drive right up to the shopping center. They can stay in their cars, and they can have that merchandise delivered right out to them. So again, I do think that the resiliency and the innovation of people, both customers, retailers, restaurateurs, is what's going to get us through this.
Well-known brands amongst your tenants, but I still wonder how many of them paid rent in April, and how many do you expect are going to be able to pay rent in May?
Well, that's the big question, I think, for landlords of every stripe, certainly those in the hospitality business, those in the retail business. We will not look back particularly fondly on the months of April and May. But our tenants are going through a tough time, and we have thrived for our almost 60 years based upon our relationships with those tenants. So we took the step of reaching out to each one proactively. Many heard from us before we heard from them, and we said, how can we help? So we are trying to find ways to help them, but certainly there are a number of tenants, particularly small businesses, who just simply can't afford to pay. Those folks we are helping in every single way that we can. We don't want to see these hardworking men and women go out of business. That there are others who probably can pay, but who are suffering a significant cash flow interruption. And so for those tenants, we're talking about deferring those payments until later when their cash flow position is increased. And then, as you may know, we launched about a year or year and a half ago into an expansion of our shopping center. We're growing by about 50%. And so we've also used this as an opportunity as we try to help those tenants who need it to say, hey, listen, we're partners here, and we would love to see a commitment to our expansion in the future. So I'm delighted to announce that our lease up of that expansion is further along now than I think it would have been had it not been for this terrible coronavirus. So there is some good news in all of this.